Om Adhyana Timirandhasya Yananjana Shalakaya. Yes. I will now speak out of my third eye. You got the table there wrapped around. Okay. I got it, especially do it like the floor. Omagyata, Amagyata, Nivamasya, Gananjana, Shalakaya. Shalakaya. Chakra Unmalitam Jena. Chakshurunmalitam Jena. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. These are some devotees from Naperville who are joining. These are some devotees from the Chicago Naperville area that are also okay. Just listening. I also I'm just coming because from 5 o'clock until 7 o'clock was planned for the I'm gonna talk out of my chin. From 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, we had the what was the fifth uh, Pan American Conference on Education. And devotees Param Das, who's like the representative of the Ministry of Education of South America, he made a very nice presentation about use of artificial intelligence within our courses. And he gave a very nice presentation on showing how he started from papyrus up to artificial intelligence. What's his name? Socrates. Socrates. In the time when Socrates was educating, everybody would memorize things. Right? Yeah. And they had the ability. So many techniques you could learn. And so people would hear a drama and they would memorize the entire thing. Um, okay, so at the time of Socrates, everybody would memorize, you would sit here maybe a 1 hour drama and would memorize the entire thing. And education, part of it was drama, it's part of the standard university education. And it meant writing, presentation, and criticism. So you had to learn how to write a drama, how to present the drama, and how to criticize. Very complete education system. But then people started learning how to write, do writing and stuff at that time, becoming more and more popular. So they asked Socrates, what do you think of writing? And he says, it will produce a class of people who will appear to know many things, but actually will know nothing. Yeah. So he was pointing out that there's always been, every new technology, there's always been opposition when it comes in. So even when people started suggesting bringing writing into education was considered like people were saying this will destroy education. And then later along came the book, right? Books, right? Now, not only can we approach the teacher and listen to him, but also we're going to take the teacher and read his book, although we may never come in contact with it. That was also opposed, you know, there should be no books in education. And then later on came online learning and all these kinds of things. So his point was that some people, maybe because they want comfort, they're trying to reject artificial intelligence and limit it in so many ways. But his point was no, it's a very, very proper tool, but now we have to learn how to use it properly. He said his example was he had to give an Upanishad class. He had to cover the entire thing in 3 days. It was the very, very last course in the whole series of Bhakti Shastra courses. It was in the afternoon, after lunch for teenagers. Yeah. It was like almost every single thing. And, okay, you do it. Yeah. So they were all coming in there, with, on their face was a look, teach me, I dare you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He said, okay, I'm not going to have you read the book at all. But no, it's pretty good. But rather, I want you to find one idea in the book that really touches you as being something worthwhile. And I want you to identify an audience and then create a presentation that you will present to them later on. Wow, 3 days. Yeah. And he did all that. And people came up with different focuses. They liked different things and so on. Okay. And then the very final thing, totally surprise test, closed book test. We gave him a test for comprehension. See if actually, he didn't like the book. Came back and the average score was 90%. Yeah, I mean, and they were using artificial intelligence and everything else. So then one of the people in the audience today asked, do you think if you gave the same project-oriented education without artificial intelligence, it would have got the same result? And he said, yes, the project-oriented education worked without artificial intelligence, but he was saying that it wouldn't be the same thing. And the artificial intelligence was giving people the tools and the connection they need to reach out into the actual, social environment now. And so it was very, very essential for the way the world is structured. So it was a very, very nice presentation. It was on for 2 hours, and then Tapan Mishra came for the board of exam, the Minister of Education was presenting, and so went over a little bit. The lady's name, she was presenting at the end. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. But now we're going to study Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita is a project-oriented class, right? After hearing this class, Arjuna has to go out and apply his project. What is his project?
Fighting a battle.
Yeah, how many people does he have to kill?
It's something like 600.
Oh no, he doesn't kill 640 million all by himself. What's his share? I don't know. Maybe maybe he's killing like 50 million. He has to kill 50 million people in 18 days. This is like the Great Pyramids in Giza. The Great Pyramids, they go from blocks, the smallest blocks are 2 tons. That's the small ones. Okay? The biggest ones go up to 50 ton. And they always try to figure out because they said the whole thing was done in 22 years. Okay. And the blocks, I forget, there's something like 1 billion something or other blocks in there, this size. And just the sheer mathematics of looking at that in 22 years, that means it's something like one block would have had to gone in place every 97 seconds, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Okay. Now, of course, if you're beating slaves to do all this, after a while, your arm just gets tired. I mean, there are several things like this, many things. Again, applying it to artificial intelligence to take all the information, put it together. And certain things seem to be, yeah, okay, it seems like that might have worked. But just the sheer thing of putting it together is almost impossible. And many things like that. So, yeah. So Bhagavad Gita is a project-oriented text. That's oriented towards the project of Kshatriya, right? Yeah. And Prabhupada says that Bhagavad Gita is especially meant for Kshatriyas. One time there was an educational conference, and they were talking all about teaching Bhagavad Gita to children and all these kind of things in families. And Prabhupada was criticizing and saying, no, Bhagavad Gita is for administrators. Bhagavad Gita is for practical application, this kind of thing. And Krishna comes as a Kshatriya, he has to deal with these administrative aspects like that and so on. It's a very practical application text. That's the whole idea. But of course, it's spoken 5,000 years ago, when society and everything else was quite different. And so it's kind of extracting out everything. So it starts off, that it's been very, what do you call it? What's the word? Civil war, right? Shakespeare, great American guy. He starts off Romeo and Juliet, one of his probably the second most famous work. And he said, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene, in fair Boise, Idaho, where we lay our scene, 2 families both alike in dignity, from ancient grudge break forth to new mutiny, and civil blood makes civil hands unclean. Translate that into Hindi. It took us 3 days to translate it into Spanish. Oh God. Yeah. Even how do you is there a Hindi word for fair? In fair Verona, where we lay our scene.
Mela.
Yeah, okay. Because in Spanish and that is beautiful.
No, this is not that fair. It's fair as in beautiful.
Even in modern English. Yeah. Yeah.
Good looking like that.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. A girl may be fair, but not be beautiful. Yeah, so trying to translate Shakespeare's Spanish, what you got was Miguel Cervantes could have done it. Yeah. So this is the situation. They've had all this civil conflict from the very beginning, this way, left, right, everything, top, bottom, everything else. And now finally it's coming to the point where there's going to be a resolution by the forces of good fighting the forces of evil. And Arjuna is so happy because he's going to get his revenge, and he's going to be able to satisfy his wife's, criticisms of her, and he's going to be able to regain his big brother's honor. Yeah, ever think of that? Yeah, very strong at the family relationships, motivations. And put me in front of these rascals, Krishna. I want to see them. So he needs an impetus. He needs motivation. And so, he's thinking Krishna will put him right in front of Duryodhana. Who else could he put him in front of to increase his enthusiasm? Duryodhana, who else? Karna, who else? Huh? Yeah, who else? Dushashana. Yeah, that's like he did the activity and stuff, so on. He never would have done that by himself, but still he's the one who did it. So so putting him in front of all these people, remember this is Vibhava. We require this. Prabhupada says you cannot fight without becoming angry, right? So he had to have anger and stuff. And Prabhupada would do this, examples of Prabhupada doing this himself in terms of getting into the mentality he wanted like that. No, it's preaching. Okay, but Krishna doesn't do that. Krishna puts you right in front of two people. Bhishma and who's Bhishma? Arjuna.
He's like a grandfather.
Did Arjuna have a father to raise him up? Who was raising him up? This is a very unusual guy too. Vishnu never grew up. He never got married or anything else, and so he never really entered into all this experience. So basically, Bhishma, it was basically something like maybe like a 25-year-old guy in a 140-year-old body. And so when he's talking to them and everything else, a very interesting person. And Drona, who was Drona?
He was a teacher from
How do you say in Japanese? Sifu. Sensei. Yeah, yeah. So you're going to be taking Japanese martial arts, aren't you? Yeah. Hapkido. Yeah. Or what's the other one? Taekwondo. Don't take Taekwondo. Taekwondo is for me. It's very different, man. Yeah. The Hapkido is more. It's more. It involves more philosophy. You know. But yeah, you'll see right away. There's very strong teacher, character, and everything else. Yeah, this is putting right in front of these two people. Then immediately, then Arjuna, Sambandha, starts to come to his senses. He begins to realize, you know, I was looking at the external things, how I wasn't going to enjoy these things, but boy, this is what it means, really. I'm going to kill my grandfather, kill my martial arts teacher, who loves me more than he loves his own son. Right? Ashwatthama knew this, that his father loved Arjuna more than he loved him. And so, you know, this is like, what a horrible thing to do. And also, he's going to kill his nephews. They're nobody in front of Arjuna, right? Little people. So then, yeah, Krishna does his job. Yeah. So when Arjuna, this is terrible situation. This is the most terrible situation. That's why it's so famous. It's a civil war, which is the most terrible thing you can have. One time, it was Prabhupada's Samadhi festival in Vrindavan, and everybody comes and talks about Prabhupada and so on. And halfway through the morning, Vishwambar Goswami from the Radharaman Temple came in. Every year they invited him to come, and he came in and he said, "I'm so, so disturbed. I've been hearing that all of you disciples of Prabhupada are starting to fall into different groups about initiation and this kind of stuff. And if you're planning on having a big conference here and stuff to battle it out and have all these wars and stuff, and this has disturbed me so much." And he said, Vrindavan is not the place for these civil wars. He said, if you want to do this, go to Kurukshetra. Go to Kurukshetra. Yeah, right. And then they canceled it. The whole thing. They say, yeah, Vrindavan, very nice, very nice. Yeah. So he's very short. He stopped the whole war, but it's someplace else. Yeah. So then, and then Arjuna cannot come to a conclusion following Dharma, Shastras, and these kind of things, and goodness and ethics, immorality, and all this kind of stuff. Can't solve the problem. And so finally he just decides he's just going to walk away from this. His bow falls from his hand, everything else. Damned if I do, and damned if I don't. So Hamlet was damned if he did, and damned if he did. And Hamlet's conclusion was that, obviously you can understand what is good and bad is by your intellect. You can understand what is eternal, what really lasts, Brahman, and is everywhere in all places. And you can come to the intimate features, Paramatma. What's his name? Alfred North Whitehead. Heard of him? Yeah. Who was his disciple? Bertrand Russell, Nobel laureate. Yeah, he said, big professor from Harvard, British, very nice. He said, there is no inevitability as long as there is a willingness to contemplate the present. I started applying before I was a devotee, applying that kind of thing. I saw any time, any situation, it doesn't matter how, is this impossible it is. You just calm down and sit down and just contemplate what's happening. You always find away, they go ahead. Some people know, they don't want to look, they don't look, they give up. They're kind of frustrated. No, it's a very, see, is he a Brahma body? Does he understand there is a reality? What's the next step? Brahma body? Yeah, Paramatma body. And then you begin to see forms and activities amongst the universal thing. This goes here, that goes there. Okay, first, but Brahman means you go into the kitchen. Okay, there's the kitchen. Paramatma means you begin to see fire. 2 pots, water, farina, suji, butter, sugar, and a spoon. That's Paramatma. Now, what is Ananda? Yes. Okay, I'm in the kitchen, Hari Bol, there is a kitchen, and these things, I begin to see these things, but now I know how to put them together. There's Jivatma, there's multiple Jivatmas, there's Prakriti, and there's Paramatma. That's Bhagavad Gita. That's what Krishna is trying to give a solution for Arjuna's problem. Because, you know, the bears, how many people here know what a bear is? Anybody listening here, know what a bear is? Raise your hand if you know what a bear is. Kids know what a bear is. So they have bears in the zoo, right? Bears are in the zoo, and bears are bored to death in the zoo. So what to do? So they discovered that if the bear goes into his little cage at night, okay, sleeps, comes out in the morning, instead of just giving them their food, they would hide it. They put it under a log, and they put it up in trees and all this kind of stuff. So the bear had to come out and go looking for this stuff and this on and figure out some way to get up there and pushing stuff and everything else. And the bears became completely satisfied. Right? Yeah. No, this is the life. Spend all day, you know, looking for food and eating it and stuff, and looking at the other people over there, looking at me, looking at them, scratching their back, bear scratching their back. You see them when they get into it. And once a year, a little romance. Okay. Yeah. And then the bears were satisfied. Would a human being be satisfied? No, because we have different facilities, you know, for appreciation, these kind of things. So Arjuna is not satisfied, you know, until there's real satisfaction. So the satisfaction here is up to the level of Paramatma in the Bhagavad Gita. It's satisfaction in terms of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It's satisfied in terms of social respect for other people like that. It's satisfied in terms of what we're doing here is beyond death and these kind of things. Paramatma is somebody who is the oldest, who knows everything, who's the cause of everything else. The purport probably goes beyond that in translations. At the end of the 2nd chapter, which is a summary of everything, Krishna says, okay, if you follow my instructions, then you will go to the kingdom of God. Right? Prabhupada says, we'll go to the kingdom of right here. So you can do right now. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. 240, 252, 252. Aisha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. Nainam Prapya Vimuyati. Stit Vasyam Antekalepi. Brahma Nirvana Richati. This is the way of spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is not situated even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. What is Sanskrit the Prabhupada is using for the kingdom of God? Brahma Nirvana. If you tell that to a Buddhist, you know, their tongue's going to come out purple, they're going to roll on the floor, pull their hair out. Brahma Nirvana, the kingdom of God. Yeah. But so that's why this book is different. You know, it's different than the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. The Upanishad, this is what Gita Upanishad. So the Upanishads, what I would say, are for very intelligent, are for very intellectual, unintelligent people.
Yeah.
Okay, is that yes, yeah, because they're very logical and all these kind of things and great intellects and words and everything else, but they're very simple things. One big Buddhist, I always mention this, he came to my university, University of California, Davis, and Freeborn Hall was a big hall. It was big. I think when they have the chairs out, it was about like 800 people or something. So, and other than that, it was multi-purpose dance floor. So all 800 chairs were there. This place was full. It was a big Buddhist guy. It was the whole hippie era and Asia and everything else. And he gave this really erudite philosophy. I think it was a monk's outfit. And his final conclusion was, God is a circle with its center everywhere and no circumference. Should I repeat it? God is a circle God is a circle. It's very interesting because there's a very thin column of shadow on your face. And you either side, left or right, you can come over here. Yeah, you can now move either way. Yeah, much better. Yeah, because it's amazing. Look at everybody's face. I can see you as the class goes on. Yeah. God is a circle with its center everywhere and no circumference. So the little child raises his hand and says, well, then why do you call it a circle? Prabhupada said, I was trying to understand all these stupid things. And then I read in Prabhupada's book, he said, this philosophy is incomprehensible. Yeah. So this is Prabhupada was coming right to the conclusion in a very practical sense. He said, I've explained Bhagavad Gita so that even a first-class fool can understand it. There's something that's one sannyasi said, but I still don't understand it, which must be even beyond, have achieved a level beyond first-class fool. I'm sure, fool emeritus or something. Yeah. So he's trying to explain. He starts off in a very simple fashion, explaining the first thing you got to understand. What is the first confidential knowledge? There's knowledge in the Vedas. You do this, you get that result. You do this, you get that result. You just do all these things. And so they're in the Chinese scriptures. They're in Marcus Aurelius. They're in, do this, you get that result. It makes you happy. It doesn't make you happy. You pay off your debt by doing this, by doing that. So what's the first confidential knowledge in the Vedas?
Give up your actions to me.
That we are not the body.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a little bit of the secret, by the way. You're doing all these things, everything else, but by the way, we're not the body. Okay. I have a mystical power in my fingers. I'm going to expand knife. And I'm going to cut everybody right down like this and open them up. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Yeah. What do you get? Immediately. You take a cell phone. Hello, mommy. Hello, kitty. Yeah, it's very thin, no? You take it off, 1 millimeter, that's 2 millimeters, yeah. And behind it is mommy and kitty. No, what do you see? Come on, you're off, what are you looking for? Whatever. What do you see? You see little cans, right? Little cans and little rectangles, there, and little wires going with it. Nothing whatsoever to do with mommy and kitty. So the same way, you cut it over. What do you get? What do you get here?
Blood.
Blood?
Bones.
Muscles. Muscles, bones, freaky bones. Yeah. What do you have here?
Lungs.
Lungs, yeah. Okay. And over here, what do you get? Pump. You get a pump. Okay. And down here? I think it's 25 intestines, the big intestines. Yeah, it's a robot. It's a cell phone. It's very simple. But that's what he's telling him in the beginning. Hey, I mean, I hate to say this, but it's kind of a big secret. But hey, we're not these bodies. See how much of a secret it is? Yeah. How much time did you have glasses on, right? How much time did you spend picking out the glasses, looking at the different lenses and this kind of stuff? Did you ever look in the mirror before you put the glasses on, before you bought them? Did you see how they looked? Maybe not so much, we're devotees. But yeah, how many options were there for lenses, right? You get to put big ones, with sprinkles on them. Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing is aiming at developing, right, this bodily concept of life. The first, most confidential thing is, hey, we're not the body. Well, okay, who are we? Where is mommy and kitty? Is there a mommy and kitty, really? Yeah. So then the next thing is, what is it? More confidential knowledge, that we're all different. Something points out at the very beginning, we're all different. Because what Buddhist philosophy or impersonal philosophy is that we're all the same, right? We are in the ocean here, in the lake, right? We're all islands in the lake. But when the illusion, the water goes away, then we'll realize, right, that the different islands aren't actually different islands. So actually, what's happening is I'm actually talking to myself, right? Right, I'm actually you. You're actually, yeah. Try and do this on LSD and see what happens. Yeah, this is what I was. I know somebody who was experimenting with LSD in the college and stuff. My God, this is like, yeah. But that in some ways that was why people were having such interest in spiritual life, because it was taking them these all these strange kind of perceptions and stuff. Okay, confidential knowledge. We're not the body. Next confidential knowledge. Most confidential. That amongst all the different non-bodies, there's one which is different. How's it going? The first time Krishna, in the fourth chapter, right here, Krishna revealed for the first time, doesn't he? Yeah. Maya Sarvani Karmani, do all your karma for me. It's in the third chapter. But other than that, he's just identifying himself as a self-realized soul, like Janak and other people. It's just that so on. How's it go? The first time he reveals it I never.
No, Ajopi son of
Jogi son of Yayatman. Yeah. I am never born, or these kind of things, and I am different than all the other souls. That's a more confidential knowledge. There is one soul, because you find even now in modern literature and stuff, they're talking about the different gods and these kind of things. It's very popular in modern literature that God is actually just a person with his own problems and stuff. And they take the Christian angels, Michael, Gabriel, Satan, right into this, and they become like 5-season serial shows. And what's the one? Satan comes out of hell and becomes a human being and has all these kind of weird stuff happening. And it's very interesting. And God is kind of like just a person, and he can't relate to his sons exactly the same way, and goes on and on like that. But it's the same thing. God is just a kind of an by sufficient power, you ask God to have your own universe. Still being going on. But he says, no, there's one that is different than everybody else. This is more confidential knowledge. Is it true? Well, that's the point. You have to investigate this, because people can say a lot of things. Right? Okay. So that's what we are now. Today's verse, pretty much. Yeah. And then he's beginning to describe himself. So today's verse is 4:9. Okay. Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yo veti tatvataha. Tyatva deham punarjanma. Naiti mameti sarjuna.
Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yo veti tattvataha. Ateham punarjanma. Iti mameti sorjuna.
Now do it again by demonstrating with your hands and stuff what's being said.
Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yo veti tattvataha.
How are you showing tattva?
Tatvata or Tatvata.
Evam yo vedi tatvataha.
Evam yo veti tatvata. Tyaktva deham punarjanma.
Tyaktva deham punarjanma.
Naiti mameti sorjuna.
This is our yoga. Chanting, dancing, and chanting, dancing, and drama. That's how it's Gandharva Veda. That's our whole yoga. Lord Chaitanya was always acting in ours. So it's quite natural. If you really know what you're saying, then automatically you're going to express it like that and so on. So very nice program. Okay, translation. We want to read translation. Oh, whatever. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, which is good. If everybody knows these on the battle of Kurukshetra, that means all these people are going to get out of all these things, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So is eternal abode here in the Sanskrit? No, not exactly. Purport. The Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 5th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of the Godhead is already liberated from material bondage. Hey, Tathata, if you really know how Krishna is going, you have to know that you've got to be in transcendental consciousness. How can you know it unless you've got transcendental experience and vision? Okay. And therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting the present material body. Such liberation of the living entity from material knowledge is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many, many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahmajyoti of the Lord, is only partial, and there is the risk of returning to this material world. But the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body and does not run the risk of returning to this material world. In the Brahma Samhita 533, it is stated that the Lord has many, many forms and incarnations. Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, they're all still one and the same Supreme Personality of the Godhead. One has to understand this fact, this is Krishna's nature and activities, and with conviction. And although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers, as stated in the Vedas, Purusha Bhagavati Upanishad, Eko Devo Nitya Lilanurato Bhakta Vyati Bhakta Vridyanta Atma. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally engaged in many transcendental forms in relationships with his unalloyed devotees. The Vedic version is confirmed in this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Parvashamuli Boyvi Lord. He who accepts this truth on the strength of the authority of the Vedas and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and does not waste time in philosophical speculation, attains the highest perfectional stage of liberation. Simply by accepting the truth on faith, which is a natural characteristic of the soul. The soul by nature is faithful. Right? Yeah. The soul by nature is looking for some authority and opening its mouth. Little birds, you don't have to teach them to open their mouth, right? automatically go from their mouth. Yeah. When you're nursing the baby for the first time, the nurse says you don't push the baby towards the breast. No, you just pet it. Yeah. So it's all inherent, very deep inherent thing. You want to accept things on faith, without doubt, attain liberation. The Vedic version Tatkamasi is actually applied in this case. Okay. So I was cutting so many branches here, so many other things are being discussed. But this is the contrary idea from Shankara. Tattvam asi. Okay. Does that mean you are God? No. It's like when you go to your karate class, okay, you're studying, and you see Bruce Lee, the movie of Bruce Lee, and he says, you are like that. Does that mean you can fight Bruce Lee? Yes. Okay. What's happening here? We got this. The Vedic version taught from a sea is actually applied in this case. Anyone who understands Lord Krishna to be the supreme, or who says unto the Lord, you are the same Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is certainly liberated instantly, and consequently his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection. Okay, so a faithful devotee is not perfect, right? Very bad. Is a faithful devotee perfect here? No. So the faithful devotee attains perfection. And so this verse in itself doesn't give perfection. Yeah, it puts you in a position where you can develop your rasa with Krishna. It seems like the Bhagavad verse. Okay, yeah. And consequently, his entrance into the transcendental is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection. And this is confirmed by the following assertion. Tam eva viritvati mrityam eti nanyam pata vidyate yanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowledge of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there is no other way to achieve this perfection. Svetash Vatara 3:8. That there is no alternative means that anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance, and consequently he will not attain salvation simply so to speak. Okay, by licking the outer surface of the Bhagavad, or by interpreting Bhagavad Gita according to his mundane scholarship. Such empiric philosophers may assume very important roles in the material world, but they are not necessarily eligible for liberation. Such puffed up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotee of the Lord. One should therefore cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge. And this way attain perfection. So, for the question, ready? Yes, I have a whole bunch of points here, other points we can discuss. Right? Yes, sir.
Maharaj, in this, when Krishna says, who knows my transcendental activities and appearance, what does he really mean? Because if we ask, especially India, a lot of people will say, yes, his appearance is transcendental, his activities are transcendental. Krishna's appearance is not like our appearance, and Krishna's activities are not like ours. But we know that. But what is that? What is the difference between knowing and doing something with it?
Yeah.
Because most people say, yeah, Krishna is like that. He's transcendental personality.
Do you think the gopis like to hear Bhagavad Gita?
I don't think so.
I think they do. Yeah. No, because there's one very nice Hindi movie, and it shows, Radha sitting there just singing and making a flower garland, and Krishna's resting back to her and listening to her song and that. And then Balaram walks in, and Radha looks up at Balaram, and he looks at her, and And she knows why he's there. And Balaram says, Krishna, Krishna, we have to save the world, like that. Oh, and Krishna goes, oh yeah, I forgot, Balaram, Radha, I have to go save the world. So she's looking at him like that. Yeah, like that. Yeah. But the other side of the thing is that they're hearing the Bhagavad Gita. Of course they want to hear it. What is Krishna doing, right? All these things. And they're thinking, yeah, Krishna would really like to be with us. Singing and doing all these things rather than out chopping people's heads off, all this kind of hacking away. But okay, maybe it's kind of fun, but, be with us. Isn't Krishna so kind? See, you know how much he would like to be with us when he gave it up, right? Yeah, to go and save people. Yeah, yeah. Balaram goes, what can I do? I have to do this, my job. Okay, yeah. So it's one aspect of Krishna's nature, right? Yeah. So to know Krishna's nature and truth and his birth and everything else is different for different people. So somebody else, I know my father, his basic idea was it's a very common thing. We all come from dust and we all go back to dust. And there's a whole exact, I can't remember what it is. Most funerals, they say that thing from dust to dust, like that. And everybody throws dirt on the coffin, simple like that. And so what's the loss? We come into this world with nothing, we go out with nothing, and in between we make everything complicated. Yeah, okay, minimize these things, yeah. But that's limited knowledge about who we are and everything else. And don't worry about the future, just be here now. Right? And enjoy yourself now. And human being, you start pushing it, then they'll say, well, okay, maybe there is something, but hey, I don't want to think about it. So agnostic, well, nobody can know. That's the next verse. The next verse will say that exactly. The people just go, well, nobody can figure it out. Nobody can know. And again, a very, very famous commercial, Budweiser beer. You know what Budweiser is? Budweiser. It's the king of beer. Okay. Among animals, I am. Among bodies of water, I am. Among beers, I am. So there's so much propaganda stuff. But one thing that's very, very famous is they have this kind of gross guy with hanging there. He has Worcestershire for a couple of days, and he has a bottle of Budweiser, and he says, "Why ask why?" Yeah. Yeah, and that's the next verse will talk exactly about that. When it says one of the enemies of spiritual life, Raga, Baya, and Krodha. And Krodha comes in. Nobody can ever figure it out. Don't talk about it. Don't waste our time. Just have another beer and become restored like an animal into the immediate moment like that. Of course, you can say, yeah, the next life will become an animal, right? Then you won't have to think about these things. But deep down, you won't be satisfied. So at different levels, people know it. Saying this, what can this say this? I mean, to your level of comprehension, you're liberated. Yeah. But there's different levels of liberation. And he's saying after that, right? After that, the next thing comes, right? Okay. Is there a God? If you're a chain smoker, can you understand that there's a God or not? You can't even understand the most gross things. I mean, so many people who smoke and everything else, they've given it up, so forth, so on. They say that if you're regular smoking, you can't even evacuate without smoking. I mean, people go to the bathroom, they have to smoke a cigarette because of stimulation and stuff. I know one devotee gave up smoking and he started investigating it. Then he discovered that every single legally addictive substance, monosodium glutamate, is in tobacco. You're not just smoking tobacco. They have every single thing, which, for example, monosodium glutamate is addictive. It's in food and stuff, but it's not like so bad that it's going to cause you that. It's all in tobacco. And so when you start to give up tobacco, you start vomiting, your heart starts going, all this stuff. Yeah. But if you do it, boy, you see a different world and stuff. And so you begin to meet people before you don't even know people. This is like, you just can't your whole life. You pass your whole life never knowing each other. Why do people get drunk at Christmas parties? Because then they can pretend it's not them, and after they can talk to their boss and stuff and say things. Oh, I was drunk. Well, I was drunk too. Yeah. So you go, how are you? How are you? How are you? Huh? How are you? Huh? Well, how are you? Yeah, what kind of reaction goes in? Right? I'm fine. How are you? Yeah, how's the family? They're okay. One of our guys, he was working for us, he was just working for devotees and stuff, and we had many cars, he was a mechanic. But he also taught the pole vaulting course for the high school, and was a volunteer and sports teacher after the school. So, and he taught a lot of, philosophical stuff with it. So one time I called him up about one of the cars, and the phone rang, and he said, "Hello, this is Bob. Who's this?" I said, "Oh, it's Hanuman's one, Hanumat Preshak." And he said, "How are you?" And I said, I'm pretty good." He said, "Well, I'm not here. This is the answering machine." And so at the end of his message, he's leaving a message. It was sardonic, but he was showing that, all of our, what do we know about other people? Nothing. It's simply a reaction of different kinds of social formalities and stuff, right? How we deal with people. Yeah, yeah. John McCarman, what's the other one? Prakritya Kriyamanani, Vinay Karman, and Sarvasana. So, but if a little bit of common English language, you can say this, you're the Supreme Personality of God, yeah, this and that. Okay, there has to be some comprehension that we don't die. Yeah, yeah. Kshatriyas, right? Do they believe that they die when the body is finished? What are some Kshatriya mottos?
Okay, yeah, before this song.
Death before dishonor. You see these movies and stuff. The guys go off, and ordinary people, once they get forced to go into the army, they start learning a lot about ethics, morality, self-consent control, from the biggest educational things they can have. And many people do. They graduate from high school, and that's kind of it. So they go into the army and leave. And after a 4-year contract, they come out with determination, understanding how to relate to authorities, and ultimately putting your life on the line for certain things. There's certain, if we leave somebody there, nobody left behind. Right? Shut your mouths. Okay, nobody left behind. Because then that all the rest of your life, they'll tell you you'll just never be able to forget this. You should let the die behind. So there's something more to myself, conscience, guilt, honor, but it's intuitive. It's like kind of know. The Brahmins, they go to the point where they can, Brahman, they can purify themselves. So our kirtan should be like that, where the mind can become focused, the mind can become detached from the senses, right? What's it called? Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and then pratyahara. So in the beginning, you're playing the drum, but you're not playing the drum is playing you. And you just can't stop, and it's just like they're driving everybody nuts and stuff, practicing, And then after a while, you say, "No, I have so much gratification from playing the drum that it's playing you." And after a while, you go, "No, I'm going to play, just to satisfy Krishna, even though it may not feel so good exactly, but this is what the kirtan requires." See, many times people are playing the drum and enjoying it so much, but they're not even listening to the kirtan. They're not emphasizing, they're not on the downbeat, they're not emphasizing the different things that are happening. So you can tell, right? Even after a while, no, it's precise, it's amplifying, it's going behind, it's building, it's putting the Maha Mantra in a way that you can actually listen to. Who are we? Yeah. Such a whole yoga process. And by associating with Prabhupada's presentations, then we can see somebody who's, yeah. What is Krishna's conclusion in the Bhagavad Gita? It says, "One who reads this Bhagavad Gita worships me with his intelligence." Yeah, it's on the level of wow, worshiping with your intelligence. Wow. How do you do that stuff? Yeah. But then after that, it's worship with the soul. But once you come to the intelligence, the point of intelligence, you can kind of see like, okay, you can see the next step. So I think, great. Yeah. So anybody who can say that. Lord Chaitanya says anybody in the name of God appears in their lips. You smash your finger with a hammer. Most people in America will say one of two things which have to do with the Muladhara chakra. It takes your mind away. But somebody else may say, oh God damn it. Yeah, not the boss. You're all ready to go out. kill your grandfather. Right? Not ready yet.
Right here.
Okay. Or your teacher. Both in trouble. Yeah. It's interesting if Bhishma and Drona can hear the Bhagavad Gita, if they're listening to what he's telling them. It's very, did Bhishma and Drona hear the Bhagavad Gita? I don't think he did. Dhritarashtra was hearing
I
it.
heard they saw the universal form.
Huh?
I heard they saw the universal force.
Okay. And Dhritarashtra was in Gandhari were hearing it. Yeah.
This is a question I've had for quite some time.
Okay. Any questions from Naper?
Okay, yeah. And I haven't heard like a satisfying as this it's those different ways that you have answered it. The question that just like we see anywhere, even in this part of land, there's trillions of living entities, the grass, insects, all these things, and maybe there's 50-20 people who are in touch with Krishna, or even human beings. There's 100,000 human beings all going through this trillions and trillions of living entities. So it just almost seems like we're too fortunate. It's like, how is it that there's trillions of living entities and Krishna is not doing anything with them? And somehow, hopefully, they'll be processed through some system to go get this chance. And on this earth planet, I mean, there's an unimaginable number of living beings, maybe 1 million devotees, to 8 billion humans. So we understand that there's a cycle and everyone's going through this. But from what we see, it just seems like virtually no one is getting the opportunity for Krishna consciousness. And somehow we're very fortunate that this is almost too fortunate. And it seems very almost sad, too sad. All these living beings aren't getting it. And how is it that we were so lucky and we got the chance, and all these living beings are not getting the chance?
Okay. I increased my volume there for the volume back down. Okay. Now except the happy tone. Goes up to one end and goes, okay. And in five things now it comes to the happy volume. So, of course, the audiologist decides what is the happy volume. It's pretty good. No. Because it's not just within the little range of what we're talking about, right? Yeah. Baba says you come to the human birth after hundreds of millions of lifetimes. Now, how long do bacteria live? Yeah, a day or two or something like that, even hours. One biologist who was talking about, making medications to fight, fighting viruses by antibiotics. And she said these things mutate so fast that it's like you or I, jump into the swimming pool and come out of the opposite end as a different person. And so, yeah, they have a different way of surviving in the species. So, yeah, how many times? And bacteria. I mean, again, how much of your body will stimulate your enjoyment of hollow? Can you rub it on your head? Can you smell it? Can you smell it? Yeah, very little. But a bacteria, their whole body goes into it. Yeah, that's what we hear. It's just like a big of sex. Oh my God. It's unbelievable. So you're going through these things, and then somehow or other we get a human body. Then Lord Chaitanya is saying a civilized human body, and he's saying, it's very rare, but we live so long and everybody else, and then Krishna is trying in millions of universes and millions of places and so on. So yeah, different people are coming here. Again, Prabhupada said a few times, or at least twice, maybe not ever. Prabhupada said you only take birth in India if you were interested in spiritual life in your previous life. Yeah. Again, we get this example that if you're interested in machines in Europe, you take birth in Germany. If you're interested in romance, you take birth in France. If you're interested in espionage, you take birth in, what do you call it, England. Yeah. Yeah, every country. I mean, in Peru, you ask how many people here like potatoes, and everybody with great enthusiasm will raise their hands. There's something like 1,000 different kinds of potatoes in Peru. There's purple corkscrew potatoes. I mean, it's like potatoes. I mean, really, it's unbelievable. Yeah, chipped potatoes, dried chipped potatoes. Yeah, yeah. So the whole world is there for different people on different levels. Yeah? And then he says here, one has to wait for the mercy of the devotees. You know? So then, yeah, Jesus Christ, came as part of the whole tradition and set this whole thing in motion and took it. Basically, the Jews had kind of like the Paramatmavad at the best. The Jews telling you that's Paramatmavad at the best, and usually Karma Kanda. And they were using it, for what's the bad purposes, like Thomas was the Girassi knew very well about karma and how to do things and how to get benefits out of it, right? Johnny Cassidy gives his lectures about Vedic philosophy. So the Jews at that time, the Sadducee and Pharisee, they were his big enemies and stuff. But he was talking about using it to get out of this world and everything else. And they were talking about it to establish position. And I've done it and this kind of stuff. So very, very philosophical atmosphere. But he was preaching a whole monotheism about God and mercy and relationships and stuff. Right? And now, I forgot what, it's the biggest religion in the world, right? Christianity or something, yeah. And then, how many, I mean, because other very, very beautiful documentary was just going like the Ten Commandments and that kind of stuff. And it was showing just how on the level of ethics that everybody has a right to their property. Everybody has a right to be judged properly. You go through the whole thing and it's just like, wasn't always the case. It just at the level of looking at it as a moral way of living with people and so on. But this, and people do that all over the place. And such honor, father and mother are honored, like or something. Yeah. So there's so much facility for people over so much time. But in some ways, it's kind of like how many of the people in the prison are going to get out this year, or within the next 3 months. Well, yeah, that's the exit point. So they're not going to be anybody after them. They're right on the edge of going out. So in some ways, it's not surprising that there aren't a lot of people who are ready to be liberated because they're being liberated. Yeah. It's fortunate. But that's nice. Christians coming at different times, different opportunities are there and stuff. Yeah, historically. Yeah. Control. Maybe this is the ultimate question here. Wait a second, I have to go up from half the volume here.
Okay.
And there's going to be a double problem because this thing is focusing on deeper tones. Yeah.
So I've wondered this for years that in this verse and in some other verses, it says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance. I just want to know, how do we go on a quest to actually know the transcendental nature of the appearance?
We don't. That's the fundamental principle, right? That you've already stated it. That's the fundamental problem. Yeah. Again, I mentioned this many, many times. Okay, back down for the heavy volume here. I know, I do, I care. That's the Hankara, first element. I know independently, I can do independently. That's the first, that's all the Hankara does. I have a separate existence. Little children, when they have a new experience, intense experience, they look at their parents to see if it's good or bad. The parents will go, oh, and they go, oh. Yeah, but they go, oh, and they go. There are pictures of men and women being tortured and men and women having sex. So these pictures of people, nobody can distinguish which is which. Yeah. So this, the nature creates the actions, and the actions, the living entity creates the happiness and distress. Yeah. So we're here, thinking that we're independent of Krishna and all these kind of things, and signing these things. But no, our real life, we're connected to Krishna, and our relationship with him determines all these things. Again, we're like 3-year-old children. Right? We have some independence, everything else, but it's just living independent. And with Krishna, it's constant and so on. So we know because Krishna is kind. Yeah, yeah. And he's coming and he's trying to help us in so many ways. And we have our responsibility, which is to, to accept it. Prabhupada says here, when one accepts with faith and what faith and knowledge, right? And it's not like, again, that's something we all have. It's our nature to know these things. It's our nature. Jiveris warupoi Krishna. So that's our nature, to love and to be faithful and to surrender and serve. Right? Yeah, it's our nature. And it comes forward in different ways, but basically, so as soon as Krishna is always coming and acting in this way, then it's, but we don't have to do it. We have independence. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It says one who can understand the truth of the appearance. So understanding is just having faith and engaging in the spiritual potency of Krishna, like doing activities, and then we're in that spiritual potency, and then that
What
helps
is
us with the
faith?
understanding.
What is faith? And what is faith for Albert Einstein? It's a big word. What is faith for you? What is faith for me? What does it mean? In some ways, this probably says in some ways, this is where it's better being in a female body than being in a male body. Because the male body is always better. One of my disciples, we were looking for, she went to interview the two nuns at a Catholic monastery in Peru. They were cloistered nuns, which means they stayed in the church. And actually, they've been transferred from Mexico, both of them at different years. And one was maybe like 72, and the other was like 68 or something. Yeah, we're both from Mexico, but they've been in Peru for many years. And they had little bars there and stuff that they could sit and talk and stuff. Girls talking to girls, but then they couldn't come out and so on. She asked many questions, and one of them was, is are girls considered inferior, like in Canada, like in our religion, women have this position, that's whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they both kind of looked at each other and smiled, like, yeah. And they told the story that Jesus was sitting someplace with the disciples, and he said, John, Matthew, Mark, Peter, come with me. And he stood up. He stood up and he said, John, Matthew, Mark, Peter, let's go. And he said he didn't tell the women, because as soon as the master got up, they got up. yeah, because the Prabhupada said this is this different nature and stuff. But everybody can approach these things. Yeah. A dog. I'm sure if a dog smelled Prabhupada, immediately they would. I mean, a dog can tell if you're eating onions. A dog can tell. Unbelievable. Yeah. So I didn't think dogs smelling Prabhupada, but I'm sure they would just, depending on so. Faith means doing what you know is right. You do that?
I'm not in my mind and emotions.
Sometimes Krishna puts you right in the line where, hey, this is what are you going to choose? And sometimes you don't choose the right thing. Yeah. But it's a whole process. The process is there. If there is no process ultimately. But because we want to do something, Krishna puts it with range, or puts it within range, and it's okay if you do this, take that up, this and that. And that shows. But in the end, it's just, the conclusion is sarvadharma parityajya. And then Krishna says, and the Prabhupada says, you can say this, you can say that, you can do this, you can do that, you can follow Ladi Bhakti, you can do all these things, but none of those things really matter. You just surrender to Krishna. And then he's talking soul to soul at that point. Okay, so I want to thank everybody very much. Hare Krishna. And tomorrow, be here by 8 o'clock in the morning. If they're going off. Whitewater raft. Class 5. Right? No. Class 4? No. Class 3? What class? Class 1? Oh, God.
Class 3.
Class 2. Okay, yeah. Class 1 is floating down the river with your inner tube, 7-Up cans floating with you. Class 2 is like, a little bouncy. Yeah. Okay, so Prabhupada, good job. I see God. Looking God. But also, this is true. I think they have, ladies having their heads, not, but if it's not, ladies are present.
अगर आपको वहाँ क्लीवलैंड में मिला ना, क्लीवलैंड में घर अफोर्ड से आसान है। यहाँ पे बहुत वो लाइफ स्टाइल आप मेंटेन कर सकते हो जो कैलिफोर्निया में 1.25 ओ ऐसे का है। उसके बावजूद भी यहाँ हम ऐसे गरीब को भी पता रहेगा तो क्या फायदा है। तो इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूँ तो 3.5-4 लाख तो बड़ी चीज नहीं है। 3.5 4.5 और 5 लाख तक का घर एकदम सही बता रहा हूँ आप लोगों के हिसाब से जो होगा। तो आंख बंद करके ले लो। अब नहीं होगा, अब नहीं, अरे अब नहीं होगा, वो तो खत्म हो गया उसमें, वो तो वही होता है। वो तो मैंने ऐसे ही एक दिन अप्लाई कर दिया था। तो पहले काफी मुझे पता नहीं एकदम से आ गया इंटरव्यू का। मैंने कहा कैसे कैसे मैंने 2 राउंड दिए, मैंने 2-3 राउंड हो गए लेकिन मैंने कहा था वो अंदर तक वो एक राउंड होता है उसमें बहुत प्रैक्टिस चाहिए होती है। ठीक है। तो बाकी सब जगह तो हवाबाजी करके चल जाओगे कि हाँ भाई हमारे किड है ये है वो। एक राउंड होते हैं ना तो मैं एक्चुअल में टेक्निकल कर रहा हूँ। और मेरी प्रैक्टिस भी छूट गई वो सब करते हुए काफी। हम्म। चलो हो गया। अब फिलहाल ठीक है जैसा भी है यहाँ पे। अभी अब यहाँ 2 बच्चों के साथ फैमिली का वैसे ही है। उधर तो बैंक बैंक में था शायद। हम्म, मुझे नहीं पता आइडिया। पर यहाँ जो आईटी वाईटी वाले हैं ना इनको सबको 1 लाख के आसपास बहुत आसानी से मिल जाता है। तो मतलब बहुत लदड़ जॉब होगी ना तो भी 1 लाख आराम से। आईटी की शुरुआत ही नहीं है। हाँ हाँ, अ, तो अब छोटे टीयर के शहर में रह रहे हो, अगर तुम टीयर 3 शहर में ऐसे रह रहे हो, क्लीवलैंड वगैरह में, 1 लाख मिल रहा है, तो उसमें मतलब बहुत सेविंग हो जाएगी तुम्हारी। हाँ, हम तो कोई बढ़िया अच्छी खासी सेविंग हो जाती होगी, इसलिए तो टेस्ला खरीद के घूम रहे थे। हाँ हाँ हाँ।